It's the Scott Jennings Show, Common Sense for the American People, here on the Salem Radio Network. And we are honored to be joined by our special guest today. Congressman August Pfluger is the chairman of the Powerhouse Republican Study Committee. This is the largest conservative caucus on Capitol Hill. For over 50 years, the Republican Study Committee has served as the conservative conscience of Congress. Mr. Pfluger is also a member of the House Homeland Security Committee, and he represents the 11th District of Texas. This is the West Texas oil patch, right, August? Thanks for joining us on the Scott Jennings Show.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, thank you for having me, and that's exactly right. Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, all the way to Killeen. It's a great district, but it's a conservative district, and we like the fact that we're getting our country back on track.
Thanks for being with us today. I've got a few breaking news topics I wanted to get your thoughts on. First of all, over the last few days, we've seen the United States military engaged in our own hemisphere, taking out a boat full of drug traffickers, apparently, off the coast of Venezuela. We're seeing a military buildup in the Caribbean and around Central America. What are your thoughts on that? There was some debate over the weekend, obviously. The vice president and Rand Paul of Kentucky, my home state, got into it a little bit on social media. Where do you stand on using the military for this kind of activity?
Well, I'll start with the threat. And the threat is that hundreds of thousands of young Americans have been killed by fentanyl, have been killed by drugs. And the threat that the cartels pose to our public safety and to the security of this nation is incredibly high. And it's been that way for a long time. And the president has the authority. I'm glad to see him do this. I myself am a veteran, a fighter pilot. And, you know, these folks that are deployed down to the Caribbean, I'll just say it's long overdue. It's long overdue that somebody took the initiative to bring the fight to them when they're bringing the fight to our houses, to tragic ends of teenagers and young people who unfortunately are dying at the hands of cartels and the product that they're sending over here. So I'm glad that something is being done about it, and applaud President Trump's efforts on what he has done.
Yeah, I think this idea, well, first of all, the Trump administration, I think, correctly started to identify these narcotics organizations as terrorists. I mean, they're transnational terrorists. That's what they are. And if there were some terrorist group from another country or another part of the world in a boat in our hemisphere coming towards the United States, we would stop them. We wouldn't let them get here and say, well, we'll let the bureaucracy sort it out. You know, I mean, that's essentially what people are arguing we should do with these narcotics traffickers, and they carry material that can kill, as we know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans. So I think politically it's going to pan out for Trump here. I think choosing to finally engage on this, the American people are going to be behind it. I assume people in your district are going to love it.
Absolutely, and that's exactly right. The Trump administration, the president has rightfully identified them as terrorist groups. They have been terrorizing our communities. My district loves it. They're going to continue to love it. And by the way, just across the aisle, I mean, tell me a Democrat who hasn't, unfortunately, in their own district, seen the tragic ends of this of drugs flowing into our country. So I'm going to have a hard time finding any reason why the Democrats on the other side of the aisle would not applaud this, other than their Trump derangement syndrome, which is just their vitriol for anything the president does. But he's getting results. He's making our country safer, and he's taking a stand. This is deterrence. The cartels need to know, because countries like Mexico have done absolutely nothing to stem the flow of fentanyl and other drugs that come from South and Central America. They've done nothing. And so thankfully we have a president who is actually taking a positive, preemptive role in stopping this.
Let me shift gears to what's going on in Congress. By the end of the month, Congress has to fund the government, and there's some, belief out there that maybe there could be a government shutdown. Where are you on this? What are the odds of a government shutdown, and sort of what are the postures of the two parties as we head towards the end of September here?
Well, I think Democrats, again, the vitriol for Trump, they don't want to deliver any victories for him. But look, let's just paint this for what it is. Democrats are the party of large government bodies, of agencies, so they definitely want to see the government stay open. Republicans, we have made it our mission to cut wasteful spending, to cut fraudulent spending, and we're going to continue to do that. So you're going to have a showdown, obviously, at the end of September. Things like the military and our national security agencies, they need to continue to have the funding, and the military personnel and their families need to be able to get their paychecks, do their job, have the equipment to go to places like the Caribbean or wherever the mission calls for. So myself as a conservative, I really want to see us get back to regular order. And I'm encouraging the Speaker of the House to lead on this issue to get us back to passing appropriations bills with top lines that are less spending than we had last year, that cut that wasteful spending. Until we do that, we will not heal this place. So, it looks like we're probably headed towards some sort of continuing resolution. I hope and pray that our appropriations process will actually work, that we can send a good bill to the Senate that cuts that wasteful spending. But so far, we haven't seen the political will to do that.
And let me talk to you about the census. Back in 2019, President Trump issued an executive order that would put a citizenship question in the census. Biden reversed this order. You have introduced legislation called the Count Act, which would codify the 2019 order. Tell us, where does that stand, and you think we'll see a vote on that in this Congress?
I certainly hope we will, and I think there's political will amongst Republicans to only count citizens. President Trump, you're right to say, did have an executive order in his first term. The Supreme Court, as it was challenged, actually upheld the fact that we can count in the census only citizens. So just look at what Biden did for 4 years. There's no question why he wanted to overturn this. He wanted to do so because they held open the floodgates of illegal immigration. They poured millions of people into blue states. And we know for a fact that states like California and New York, and among others, have too many representatives, have too much funding, and have too many electoral votes, which doesn't just impact congressional elections, it actually impacts the presidential election. So this is not just a 2 or 4 year deal. This is going to go all the way to 2028 and to 2032 unless we can do something about it. We must only count citizens. I'm proud of this act. I think it's going to receive not just partisan support. I think you're going to see people on the Democrat side are going to go, you know what? My district demands that we do things transparently and above board, and we haven't been doing that. The Count Act gets us there. I hope to see a vote in the House, and then we'll put pressure on the Senate to take it up and pass it.
Yeah, it's interesting right now, though, when it comes to all these issues of enforcement and everything else going on with the illegal alien population in the United States. Democrats really have staked out what I think is going to be very unpopular political ground. You see some of your colleagues, going down to El Salvador to meet with illegal alien gangbangers that have been deported. You see, most of the time Democrats are pretty sleepy, but they really wake up and swing into action when it comes to representing what's in the best interests of illegal aliens. Has this been surprising to you? I mean, it's been kind of shocking to me to see just how animated they get on the issue of just deporting people who've come into the country illegally, particularly those that have a violent past. Like Abrego Garcia is the poster child for this. You don't want these MS-13 gangbangers in the country, and there's really no question he was here illegally, and yet this has kind of become their latest hill to die on. It's just sort of politically shocking to me.
Well, it is, and I know plenty of Democrats who personally and privately disagree, but where are they? When the debate starts, why are they not standing up to that radical left side, which has taken over the Democrat Party? So in essence, they've doubled down. And what they've doubled down is the complete dissolution of law and order. That's what they're saying is we don't want law and order in our cities. We don't want law and order at the border. We don't want law and order on the deportation of violent criminals. We stand for the criminals. We stand for those that are victimizing our communities. That's exactly where the line has been drawn. I'll tell you, I think the most politically genius move that President Trump has done is to get into the cities like Washington, D.C., and talks about Chicago, of putting federal agents and even National Guard troops into these cities to get rid of the crime. We've already seen a massive overhaul of how safe Washington, D.C. can be when you have National Guard here. But Democrats are doubling down on what I'll call stupidity, saying that they side with the criminals, they side with the illegal immigrants, they side with those who are doing harm to many in our community. And it's just, it's unbelievable. And I think they're going to continue to flail and sink if they continue down this path, which seems to be their path right now.
That's Chairman August Pfluger of the Republican Study Committee. You're listening to the Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network. Over at the study committee, tell our listeners, what does the Republican Study Committee do? I know it's a group of conservatives. You all are discussing policy. How often do you get together? Sort of what are your ongoing goals with the group, and how often do you get folks together, and what kind of do you when you do get together?
Well, thanks for asking. The Republican Study Committee, or as it's known here in Congress, the RSC, we meet weekly as a group. We have 189 members, but we also have smaller groups that get together, those that are focused on energy or focused on national security, some that are focused on the budget and balancing the budget. And we get together to form policy to push the conference in a more conservative direction. And it's had a huge impact, especially on the Working Families Tax Cut Act, where we actually got money put back into people's pockets. And I'll just tell you one example. As we were building that legislation, we met with the speaker and leadership and many of the leaders within the conference, committee chairman and whatnot. We really pushed to make sure that our families and those that are retired would see a noticeable difference in the money back in their pockets. I was talking to a CPA this weekend, and he said, I just prepared a tax estimate for an elderly couple, both of whom the man and the woman are receiving Social Security. He said, compared to last year's tax return, they're going to get $3,500 additional back into their pockets. That's what the RSC stands for. We stand for common sense legislation that is conservative, limited government, lower taxes, cutting fraudulent spending, wasteful spending, and just having a common sense approach. It's a great group. It's been around, like you said, for over 50 years, and we meet weekly with lots of interest from secretaries and cabinet members to come talk to us on a weekly basis.
That's Chairman August Pfluger of the Republican Study Committee. He's our special guest conversation today on the Scott Jennings Show. We're going to have more with him when we come back from our next commercial break. Before we part with you, though, I want to ask you a question. You ever been in a bad relationship, the kind that wears you down, you settle in, and, even though deep down, it's not how it's supposed to be? Well, that's what daily aches and pains can feel like. You stop expecting to feel good, and you start thinking, well, this is just my life now. But it doesn't have to be because of Relief Factor. You can break up with pain. Just like Anthony did, he writes in, I was dealing with debilitating pain and fatigue. I've been taking Relief Factor for about 2 months. Now I'm back to running my business, fishing, gardening, doing the things that matter to me. Relief Factor, 100% drug-free, targeting inflammation that causes pain. You'll move better, feel better. You're going to want to get it. Relief Factor. 3-week quick start guide is $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com or dial 1-800-4-RELIEF. You can break up with pain and get back to what matters with Relief Factor. More with August Pfluger. I'm Scott Jennings. It's common sense for the American people here on the Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network.
Morning people wake up for peace and quiet. McDonald's breakfast people, we wake up for the sweet rush of getting that warm, delicious breakfast right before it ends.
With McValue at McDonald's, get any size pumpkin spice iced coffee for just 99 cents until 11 a.m. And try our pumpkin and cream pie. They're spiced and priced so very nice. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Friday, September the 8th, common sense for the Friday? It's not Friday. I wish it was Friday. It's Monday, September the 8th. Here on the Scott Jennings Show, common sense for the American people. We're thinking and hoping that we get to Friday sooner rather than later. Our special guest today is August Pfluger, Congressman from West Texas, Chairman of the Republican Study Committee. Chairman Pfluger, I want to talk to you about the last administration, Joe Biden. So this information is coming out. Congressman Comer at House Oversight's obviously working on this. But there's more information coming out now about what was going on in the Biden White House. Yes, the auto pen situation, but I was reading this memo that's come out this morning. So when they pardoned Hunter Biden, back in like December of 2024, there was all this political backlash. Apparently, inside the White House, they said, well, we need to find more people to pardon to try to flood the zone with pardons so people won't notice this one as much. The Justice Department apparently didn't vet these hundreds of pardons that came out after they flooded the zone following the Hunter Biden pardon. And now we seem to find out that maybe Biden himself didn't review these files, didn't sign these memos personally. He outsourced some of it to Kamala Harris. It's a real scandal, and I think what a lot of Republicans want to know is, what's the end game here? When do you get accountability for this stuff? Are you as shocked as we are about what we're seeing coming out in the aftermath on all these pardons and stuff coming out of Biden?
Well, Scott, absolutely, and it's so sad. You know, you think back to just the scandal of the auto pen. That alone would have brought down most presidents in the history of this country. Had they not been in charge, had they been accused of being able to have a room of assistants and non-Senate confirmed staffers signing whatever it may be, whether it's executive orders or anything. Certainly, when it comes to the pardons, that would have been one of the most egregious. So, yeah, in a way, it is shocking. It's shocking because it's like the new level of when you think it couldn't get worse, it did. But it's not shocking because for 4 straight years, the entire country knew that the president was not in charge, that he had a room full of people behind the scenes pulling the strings like a puppet master, and it just varied from day to day on topic to topic who was in charge. So the accountability is those like Jamie Comer and Jim Jordan and others who are on judiciary and oversight committees. Really, it now has to be turned over to the Department of Justice. I think the investigations that we have done are extremely meaningful. The facts have been provided. Whether it's Russia collusion or the pardons that you speak of, it really is shocking. And my hope is that there will be accountability. And I think what we have done, because we've had a Republican majority, and I want everyone to listen to this very closely, we would not know any of this had we not a Republican majority the last 2 years, and obviously now when President Trump is in power. We would not know any of these facts. So for almost 3 years, we've had a Republican majority that has been having these hearings, exposing the facts and exposing the truth when it was, time after time lied about by the Democrats, by the White House. And now we're getting to the point where we can finally have some transparency and restore some trust and some faith in our government.
Chairman Pfluger, we got about 30 seconds to go. What is coming up for the House Republicans? Obviously, you got the government funding situation at the end of the month. What other issues can we expect to see on the floor here in the month of September?
Well, this week we'll be dealing with the National Defense Authorization Act, otherwise the NDAA, getting our military the weapon systems and the money that they need to deter enemies like China, but also if we need them to go fight, then to have the right weapons and the right readiness and non-wokeness to do that. The government funding is a big deal. And I'll just say more broadly, we want to restore that trust, that faith in all the institutions in getting to a point where a conservative message can be pushed out. That's why the Republican Study Committee is so important, because we want to restore that trust and that faith. There are a lot of good people who work in the government, and we want them to get the credit, but not the ones who have been pulling strings and doing the shenanigans like we saw for the last 4 years.
That voice you're hearing here today, that of Chairman August Pfluger. He's a congressman from West Texas. He runs the Republican Study Committee in the House Republican Conference. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for the updates from Washington. We'll check in with you in a few weeks and see how things are going for the House Republicans. Thanks for listening to the show today. Live from Atlanta, it's been Common Sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings, looking forward to a speech tonight with the Frontline Group down in Macon, Georgia, and then I think I'm on to Charleston tomorrow, so we'll be on the road most of the week. It's Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings on Salem Radio Network.
The fastest growing show on syndicated radio. Welcome aboard. This is the Scott Jennings Show.